Can you beat Metroid Dread without Pellets? Gameplay by @ShadowDeve, editing and voiceover by @GabbyCatGaming. The game starts off pretty much like normal, just instead of shooting pellets, we will use mostly missiles to defeat enemies and destroy blocks in our path. At the tutorial for melee counter into the charge beam, Deve chooses not to use the charge shot. By our rule set, we can use charge shots. They are not classed as the same move and are 100% necessary for use on doors later in the game. However, it is easy to accidentally use a pellet immediately after a charge shot. It's better not to risk it, so gonna avoid charge counters as much as possible. The game then tells us about dash melees, which will be super useful in this zone to save on our precious missile count. Having a large amount of missiles will be very important in the final fight, so we'll be going out of our way for a lot of them. We have our first enemy encounter, which goes how you expect. A few rooms later, we come to our first active Emmy zone. Again, not much different than a regular run, as Emmy are immune to pellets anyhow, but moving through rooms has drained our missile count by a bit. It's probably a good time to mention this is a Supercut version of this challenge. The full run is also available on this channel via the card in the upper right, or the link in the description box below. Defeating the enemies here restocks our missiles, and we grab our second missile tank. We do a drive-by on our Emmy friend again, getting super low on missile count. It was actually 0 for a moment, oh no. Nothing really eventful happens for a while. Deve goes out of his way to get a few more missile tanks and move around enemies where possible to conserve ammo. Until finally obtaining the first beam upgrade, Charge Beam. As shown in the status screen, it is entirely separate from Power Beam, which is our pellet. Do note that the Y button to charge the beam is also the same button for firing normal pellet, meaning that you can't just begin a charge without using another firing action first. Luckily, you can also put the arm cannon into a chargeable state by firing a missile first instead. For doors and other obstacles requiring this move, we'll be standing away to show there's no accidental pellet shots. He then gets the first E-tank, which isn't the biggest deal considering Deve has beaten this on Dread mode several times. We avoid the white Emmy once again before moving into a much warmer area of Artaria. Here we redirect the lava flows to access new zones in this area after grabbing another missile expansion. Make a sick mid-air shot, and finally come to our first central unit fight. This is basically your standard fight as the shell is immune to pellets. The only difference is no mashing shots to kill the core. It'll be Missile City instead. The flaming Cheerios it shoots can be melee countered or missiled to restock ammo, so no real concerns here. We're then given the Omega Strain to defeat the white Emmy. And gain the Spider Magnet. Using this new ability can scale the magnet walls and reach new areas here in Artaria, including the room housing our first major boss fight, Corpius. Corpius' face is immune to pellets, so phase 1 goes like a normal playthrough would. Phase 2 introduces him turning invisible and the bubble on his tail, which is not immune to pellets, but we can't use that fact to our advantage here, so more missiles it is. This part of the fight is actually kinda hard as his head moves around, and if not hit correctly, the missiles used are worthless for damaging him. So Deve opts to take out his tail instead. He could have countered his tail and unloaded a charge shot, however, there is a chance at accidentally shooting a normal pellet, so he decided to go the safe route instead. Luckily, shooting the green globs gives missiles, or this fight would have been screwed. With that nightmare out of the way, we now have the Phantom Cloak Aeon ability, allowing us to go invisible and avoid even more unnecessary enemy fight. We make our way to an elevator that finally takes us to a completely new area, Cataris. This place is a lot more mech heavy, but most enemies can still be avoided pretty easily. We also see the return of lava puzzles. Yay! The first encounter with Lime Emmy prompts us to remember we can go invisible, and we'll be using that a lot here soon, because the Emmys in this run are not kind at all. We make our way to a switch to power the spider rails in another room before progressing to our next encounter with Lime, who decides to be a pain in the butt. He's on the same level, so if we go through the door, he'll be waiting for us. Dude, robot. Attempt 2 goes a lot smoother. Going through the area, we reach a train leading to Dairon, a currently powered down laboratory area. Turning on some lights grants access to the wide beam upgrade, which is a direct upgrade to the power beam and therefore mostly unusable for this run, at least in standard form. We'll still get to use the charge beam version. Next, the first head-to-head with Yellow Emmy, also referred to as Speed. He'll be annoying us for a while. We're taking our new power-up back to Cataris. Along the way, Devi stands hilariously far from this wide beam box. Completely unnecessary, but funny. Moving along with the wide beam, we actually start running low on missiles, which hasn't happened in a while. Fortunately, this robot was generous. Lime is below us in this room, so we exit trying to get a better starting location, which doesn't work. This run is cursed to have Emmy problems, I swear. Managing to avoid him and make it to the central unit, it's easily defeated the same way as before. We hit Lime with a quick kill strat, and that's all there was to it. A third Emmy defeated and no pellets needed. Awesome. Lime's upgrade gives us the Morph Ball, making narrow corridors a breeze. We then collect the first missile expansion in what feels like an eon, and head over to a teleporter out of Cataris, obtaining the first Missile Plus tank, giving 10 added ammo capacity instead of the normal 2. Coming off the teleport, we gather a missile we saw forever ago but couldn't reach, get hacked by an enemy hitbox, and collect the Varia suit, allowing access to areas that were too hot to handle before. Still not immune to lava damage though. We then backtrack all the way to Dairon to do a sequence break for early grapple beam, which he fails at. Oops. Luckily, we can reload last checkpoint and save ourselves from the certain death to lava. In most challenges like this, if you make a mistake or fail the rules in some way, it is usually allowed to reload a previous save or auto checkpoint and redo the section. Unless you're a hardcore kind of person and want a clean run all the way through, in which case failure means a full restart. In this case, we didn't fail the challenge, just an optional stunt, so we're doing the checkpoint method here. We now acquire our new weapon of choice, the grapple beam, which, while much weaker than missiles, it is unlimited in its use and extremely spammable. Some light backtracking later, we return to the underpowered sections of Dairon, where he is a menace with the grapple beam. Powering more generators leads to bombs, making Morph Ball a new offensive option. We then face a familiar enemy, Kraid. While normal pellets would be nice here to take out his projectiles and dirty fingernails, we have to resort to good old missiles for this round. Early bombs allows the second phase to be almost completely irrelevant. Major threat 2 down and diffusion beam required. Diffusion is extremely cool, causing explosions on impact of our charged shots, hitting obstacles through walls. Returning to Dairon, we cross Speed Emmy Zone yet again. Notice as Samus is running that the arm cannon is blue. Deve is holding ZR to make sure that if he hits Y at any point, the grapple will come out instead of a pellet. This also makes quickly using grapple into charge beam much easier. A few rooms later, there's a train to the 4th area, Berenia. A very wet place, early grapple allows for a lot of underwater sections to be avoided, along with another way to beat new enemies in this area. We say hi to our lonely buddy and make our way to the flash shift room. This ability allows us to avoid activating pressure plates and cross large gaps normal jumps couldn't. A couple upgrades and one water bomb later, Deve makes another oddly far shot to clear this path out of Berenia. Back to Speed Zone using grapple to avoid him yet again. Getting pinged a lot by his tracking before managing to reach his central unit. We all know how this works by now, so I'm skipping the fight and going straight to Speedrun's track, destroying Speed Emmy. He won't be bothering us again. I wish that meant our Emmy issues were over, but we'll get to that. Speed grants us access to Speed Booster, a very important, kinda overpowered tech that we'll definitely be taking advantage of. A few speedy maneuvers later, there's an elevator to yet another zone, Berenia. Here we are greeted by the first of several robotic Chozo, which we unfortunately have to disassemble. We then locate a train to Gavaron and acquire the super missiles, as well as another Missile Plus tank. A few train rides later, we return to Berenia to take down Water Boss. Now, theoretically, we could have done the speedrun tech pseudo wave to skip this fight, but the likelihood of shooting a pellet was way too high. Thus, we'd rather do all bosses for challenge runs. Many super missiles later, Water Boss goes down. Back in Gavaron, a second Chozo robot picks a fight with us, which he actually dies to. Oops. Round 2 goes much better. Another train brings us to Elune, a small combat zone hiding the plasma beam, giving our normal beam an awesome neon green color and the ability to kill robots without missiles. Our next mini-boss features the staff-wielding Chozo warrior, which takes a bunch of super missiles to the face before going down. A slightly lower amount of mashing than your standard way to fight him. It's been a hot minute since we saw an Emmy zone, eh? Here we see the blue Emmy Ice continuing the trend of annoying behavior in this run. See, the issue is we want to grapple above us here, but he's up there. Literally can't catch a break. Really, Emmy? Come on now. Finally making it past Ice Emmy, Deve performs another water bomb to skip a spin boost spot since we don't have that yet. A bit of fancy platform jumps and we unlock this door for later. We can now make our way to Ice's central unit. Speed boost allows an instant end to phase 1 and phase 2 is handled like usual. Deve leaves storing another boost to quickly ascend the large room next door and bait the Emmy across the ceiling. Ice missiles acquired. Time to get the spin boost, which we skip to do ice early and not retrace as many rooms this playthrough. Skipping quite a bit of traversal, there was an interesting encounter with some fish. Normally a few plasma shots would completely decimate this horde, but we can't do that, so this is what happens. Bad. Anyways, on to getting the gravity suit and returning to Artaria, which is now a frozen wasteland with a red Chozo warrior problem. A well-executed speed boost takes it to phase 2. Only slightly more difficult than your standard Chozo warrior and still no issue for missiles. Returning to Cataris, we find a new major threat experiment is sucking up all of the heat. Missiles are the regular weapon of choice for this fight, so not much difference for this challenge. Gravity Suit allows walking through all temperatures, including flamethrowers and straight-up lava. Returning to Artaria grants access to our movement and combat skill, Screw Attack, which lets us grab a handful of missiles really quickly and mess around with the fish a bit. We've seen them, what, 3-4 times now? A quick teleportation journey later, we face off against Golzuna, a boss whose butt we literally have to kick to acquire cross bombs. We grab yet another missile tank and make a train ride to Hanuvia, the location of our ship. We then make a quick detour to Ferenia to handle some light work and obtain the Storm Missile ability. We are now absolutely stacked in terms of offensive options. And at this point, regular shots are outdone by storm missiles if your mash isn't good enough anyhow. So the rest of this challenge should be easy peasy. This double Chozo fight is a prime example. Shine Spark into one of them and unload 2 sets of storm missiles and wham, he's gone. The slightly more powerful gold variant also falls pretty quickly to a few sets of storm missiles. Grabbing the space jump from the statue, we have now obtained all the optional upgrades for this challenge. One quick kill on purple Emmy central unit later, I now realize we never saw the purple wave Emmy in this video. That being because it was the only Emmy Deve basically didn't see. So much traveling back and forth to areas that it never got anywhere near him in its zone. No speed kill this time, just vanilla defeating the wave Emmy and receiving the wave beam, which basically says level geometry doesn't exist, firing pellets through literally anything. Or it would, if we were allowed to use them. Instead we get to do this. Fun. Back to main story pathing, we return to Hunuvia fully geared. Take down another red Chozo warrior, whose life force Samus sucks out with her hand, and take a cutscene victory over the final Emmy to get power bombs, which simply obliterate everything on screen. Balanced gameplay. Final mini-boss time is a shining gold Chozo warrior that does something we're not gonna talk about. One gold-plated Chozo warrior later, we take the elevator to Ground Zero, Itorash, and face our greatest challenge yet, Samus's father, Ravenbeak. Sub-missiles for normal mashing, and the first phase is pretty simple. In gold form, he can't be harmed until after a melee counter, so we just wait for openings and missile away. Phase 2 is why all those missile upgrades matter. There are no moves in this phase that restock missiles, so running out would be a major pain. Not unwinnable though, bombs will also do damage, but he's flying in the air. Do you realize how annoying that'd be? Phase 3 is basically phase 1 with a supernova move and occasional shine spark, but the win condition is the same. Storm missiles when open and melee counter when possible to stun Ravenbeak and restock missiles and power bombs. One giant laser later, and we begin the classic Metroid escape sequence. At this point, our normal beam has been replaced by the hyper beam, a straight up insta-kill laser, making it impossible for us to use pellets at all from here on. So there you have it, beating Metroid Dread without using pellets. If you would like to watch the full run, check out the end card or the link in the description. Deve has a few more crazy challenge runs in Metroid and other games coming in the future, so if that interests you, do the YouTube thing. Subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed.